How have you seen your work, if at all, impacted with the pandemic, the last couple of years?
So it was actually during the pandemic that I, loose quote, retired and separated from the organization that I was working with. And it got really complicated in the sense that I had to figure out what it meant for me and my family to be safe, right, before I extended myself to anyone else. And so that's part of that learning that I talked about, that self-work and the transition into this work, is that I'm not a superhero, right? I don't show up with a cape on and fix everything. That's ego, right? And so what I do is I'm at my base nature, I'm a space holder. And I can say I do that well, right? And that space is held to bring you back to yourself, for you to make the decisions that you think are best, right? Ultimately, you and Sierra made all the decisions for how you wanted to bring Sade into the world, what you wanted to look like, even down to me being part of your birth team, which I was so honored to be part of that. But at that time, you know, doulas were restricted from hospitals across the nation, and that also happened here in Ohio. So when I was doing work, and I was working on a more intense capacity at that point and had a number of clients that I was supporting, it went from I'm at a doctor's appointment with you on a Tuesday to now Friday you've been told I can't be at the hospital. And not only I can't be at the hospital, but you have to choose one person who's going to be there. And that is challenging, right? That is challenging.
That can be traumatic.
Exactly, extremely traumatic. And then there were some hospitals, I know the hospital that you all delivered at was not one of them, I learned that, but there were some hospitals that were practicing separating babies from moms when moms were COVID positive, because there was so much fear at that time, not realizing, right, like there's antibodies in that milk, right? The best place for them to be is actually with their mother. And so it was a really, really difficult time for a lot of my people. And there were a number of folks who were changing their minds and making choices to have home births at that time, which also is not the answer always, right? You know, have a home birth because you want to have a home birth, because you truly believe in it, not because you shouldn't have to be in that place to make that decision because you're afraid of what may happen at the hospital. But also I can deeply empathize with that. So it was difficult. It was difficult.
How did you work through those internal feelings of like, okay, I can't fix everything. You know, I have to show up as a space holder. Like, how did you work through those thoughts and feelings? Because listen, I would argue even like, you know, as social workers, we are kind of socialized to show up to be especially as black social workers, right? Like, you know what I'm saying? We are kind of socialized to show up and to be the people that fixes the situation in a sense. So how did you kind of work through that?
Therapy works, y'all.
That is a fact. That is 100% a fact.
Therapy works,
yes, it
right?
does. Yes,
like,
it does.
I'm not responsible for any other human's joys, and I'm not responsible for their challenges either. Again, I can be a space holder, but I have to practice boundaries. And so learning boundaries in my life was catapult to my existence as a human, and not just the way I showed up in birth work, but in all of my work, you know, as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, in my relationships, being able to practice boundaries and actually check in with my body before I say yes to something. Also before I say no to something, just to be able to create a space to pause. Can
you break that down, what that means to check in with your body? Because I've spoken about things like that before as it just relates to emotional intelligence and like paying attention to your physical responses in your body to know exactly what it is that you're feeling.
That's right.
But can you just kind of break that down a little bit?
Yeah, and so we talk a lot about this at Replenish in the yoga carriage. And so if you take a drive that you take that same route every single day from home to work or home to school, wherever it is, you can probably get there without actually paying attention to what you're doing. So you can arrive at that destination without recalling much of anything about the experience of getting there, because so many of us walk around not being present and not being connected to our physical bodies. We're connected to a whole lot of other things, to our technology, to expectations, to all the outside noise, and oftentimes we're making decisions not based on what we really want or what we really know to be true, right? And so that idea of I believe that we can slow time down. I was practicing that when I was on the highway trying to get here the night that Sade was born.
I practice that literally in the midst of these conversations. I have to constantly do breath work in these moments of like not focus on the question and just be present in the conversation, be present in the moment.
Right.
So I'm with you 100% on that.
Yeah, and so when we're present like that, we can slow those minutes down, right? So everything is not so rushed. I don't believe in treating anything urgent unless it's urgent. I don't treat non-urgent things as urgent. So if someone asks me, are you available for this? Before I say yes, I'll say, allow me to pause just for a moment, and I will let you know. Take a few breaths. Notice how it's resonating in my body. For me, if I have resistance, I'll feel my shoulders start to creep up. My heart will start to race. My belly will get really achy. And I just feel like I want to claw my way out of a room. Right. And so I used to bypass all those feelings. Right. Like I wasn't connected enough. I didn't allow myself to be connected enough with my own internal dialogue to be able to listen to it and make decisions based on that. Yeah. Now, there are some things that I just have to do, right? Like, I got to write the check for the mortgage. There's some things that I just have to do, right? I don't get to always say no. Yeah. But I do get to have that space just to pause and check in, like, okay, what is my capacity right now for this? Is this something that I truly want to do? Does this feel right in my body?
Eckhart Tolle says that that's true. There's things that we have to do. We do have responsibilities, but we do not have to worry about them.
That's right.
Right? Like, you know what I'm saying? You don't have to worry about paying your mortgage or paying your bills. You do have to do them. Right. But you do not have to, attach that emotion of worry to them.